Hello everybody! We're back for our 2022 holiday special episode. This is Ramsis.
And I'm TheVespor.
And this year we're going to do not one, but 2 TV episodes.
This year our first video is going to be about Married with Children, Season 7's Episode 12's titled Christmas.
So Married with Children was a sitcom, and it was kind of a reverse sitcom. You know how most sitcoms have a happy family, and it's, oh boy, look at all the trouble they get into, and they work it out at the end. The dad or the mom will hug the kids and say, it's okay. Well, Married with Children is the exact opposite of that.
And at the end of it, not necessarily everybody wins in the way that you think they will.
It's a, wow, they really got one over on somebody type of win, and it's kind of a nasty win. And that's the idea of Married with Children. It's an anti-sitcom, I guess we'll call it, where things are a little twisted and reversed here. So this is going to be a sitcom turned on its head, and that's why this show is so popular.
So this show originally appeared on the Fox network, originally broadcast from April 1987 to June 1997. What made this show great wasn't just the idea and premise behind it, but the actors and the characters involved in it.
All the actors went on to great things, whether before, during, or after the show. You'll probably recognize most of these actors. They've been around forever, and they're all great. There's not a bad actor in the bunch.
There are a lot of characters on the show. We'll only talk about the ones that are pertinent to this episode. Right. So we'll start with the main character, Al Bundy, as played by Ed O'Neill.
Ed O'Neill, what a great actor. You probably should remember from Wayne's World, but he's been in everything. He was in Little Giants and Dutch, but let's be honest, Married with Children is where Ed O'Neill is prominent, and he is perfect. Why do you say that? Al Bundy is a very tough character to play. He's pretty much a loser. He was so popular in high school. He was the all-star football player for Polk High. Then he got married, and his life has been a downhill path ever since then. And the joke of the show is that he works at a shoe store, and he's worked there forever. He makes minimum wage. He's miserable, but still he comes home to his wife, Peggy, and he tries to put on a happy face, but they insult each other all the time. He has very little money to work with, and he somehow gets by. He has to deal with the miserable portrayals of everyday life, but he finds happiness somehow. And that's the real catch of the show, and why so many people liked it, is watching Al Bundy overcome how miserable he is, and winning in the end in an Al Bundy way. So that's the Al Bundy character in a nutshell.
Next up, our second main character is Peggy Bundy, who is also Al's wife, played by Katie Seagal. You will remember her in Futurama, which is probably the other show she's remembered most for. And she was also in some other shows like Pitch Perfect 2, and she was also in The Sons of Anarchy as Gemma Taylor-Morrow. And she was in 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter as she played Kate Hennessy. So as Peggy Bundy, her role was as a wife who literally did nothing, pestered her husband, and refused to do anything that didn't benefit her. Al ended up married to her with children.
Al will play off on Peggy, and that's pretty much how a lot of the episodes go. Al will come home, he's miserable. Peggy will start nagging about something. Al will groan and be upset about something. Peggy will start eating away at him. But the fun of it is that Al still loves her. So that's the fun dynamic that the two characters have, and you can't really have a show without Peggy being the antithesis to Al's character. And it's a wonderful play that Katie Seagal and Ed O'Neill have together. And next we have one of the children, because the show is called Married with Children. First child born was Kelly Bundy. And this is played by an actress that I hope a lot of you know, because she's become very big since her time on Married with Children, Christina Applegate. Now, our retro fans here should remember her from a little 1991 movie called Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, and she played the role of Sue. She was also very big in the Anchorman series. She was in both movies as Veronica, another huge role that she's remembered for, and she showed up in various TV shows. The list is a mile long. She was in every TV show you can think of, either as bit parts or as major parts. She's another perfectly cast character in the show. Her role in Married with Children is that of a dumb blonde. She takes it to the extreme. Her brain was empty, she failed school, the hot, attractive girl that all boys love, but she had 0 IQ. And that was the joke behind the Kelly Bundy character.
And the second child born into the family is Bud Franklin Bundy, played by David Faustino. He didn't quite have as glorious and limelight of a career as the others, but he is doing fine for himself. He is a radio personality. And he also did a lot of voice acting, like Mako on The Legend of Korra and Helia on Nickelodeon's revival of The Winx Club. That being said, Bud is basically the smart sibling. Unfortunately, he wants to get laid extremely bad and can't do it because his personality is quite toxic.
Very smart, loves women, can't get a woman to like him, and his sister will always poke fun at that because they're sort of opposites in that way. She's dumb but attractive, he's not so handsome but smart. And there you go, that's the compliment that we have with the two kids. And now for this episode, we had to mention another member of the Bundy family. You're like, what? I thought it was only 2 kids. Yes, for the majority of the show, they only had 2 kids, but in the 7th season, we have the character of Seven. And you're probably saying, Seven, who is that? Seven was a child insert character that they threw into the 7th season to try to renew popularity interest in the show. Bud and Kelly were getting older at this time. They were past college age, so they wanted to get a young kid back into the show. And shows have done this before. It was very unpopular in other shows. It was very unpopular in this show. So Seven will be appearing in this episode, and we'll mention him as we go along. Seven was played by Shane Sweet. And Shane Sweet is probably best known for his appearances in Star Trek Enterprise. He was also star of The Journey of Alan Strange. He was on the game show Figure It Out. So he was out there, but his career was very short. He went from Married with Children, did some bit parts. He also formed a band, and that was about it. Then he quit acting and show business after that. And I'll just give you a little history of Seven because I guess you guys should know who is this kid sitting here as we're talking about the show here. He was unpopular on the show as it was. Seven is pretty much an inserted character that was the child of Zemus and Ida Mae Wanker, and they pretty much dropped off the kid on the Bundy. And it was supposed to revive interest in a child in the show, and it didn't work at all. One of the most unpopular additions to a show ever.
And he only lasted 12 episodes, folks. That's how unpopular he was.
And you can even see how unpopular the character was getting. We're getting to the end of his run here. I don't think he shows up much after the episode we're talking about. This will actually be like the second to last appearance of the character on the show. And he has one line in the whole episode, and it's not even done right, and it's kind of awkward, and we'll get to it when we talk about it. But yes, that's the character Seven. So if you're wondering who that little kid sitting there when we're talking about the episode is, but there he is. He's the child of the cousins of Peggy.
Now that we mentioned the entire Bundy family, there's only 2 other characters at this point which become a staple of the show, and that is Marcy Darcy and Jefferson Darcy. Let's go ahead and talk about Marcy Darcy, who is played by Amanda Bierce.
Amanda Bierce is another one of those actresses that's only really well known for Married with Children. She didn't go on to much else, but it should be noted 11-year run is pretty good. But she is remembered from a certain movie in 1985 called Fright Night, which was a horror film, and she was the main focus of that. But besides that, she didn't go into much. She would do some directing, and she would have a lot of parts in Hollywood, but not as a major role. Married with Children would be exactly what Amanda Bierce was known for, and again, she's another great actress when it comes to this show. She played the part so well. As Marcy Darcy, she was Al's next door neighbor and a constant nemesis to Al. Al is against everything she stands for. He hates women. She's a constant nag. She does well by her husband. She's very well off. Everything Al can't stand and doesn't have, pretty much Marcy has, and they are going to be nemesis for all 11 seasons of the show, and they play off each other so well. Feel the hatred, you can feel the vitriol from these 2 characters. The fun thing about Marcy is she starts off married to one husband named Steve. He leaves the show, and then we have Jefferson Darcy, who we'll talk about next, and that's what makes the character even more interesting when Jefferson Darcy is introduced in the show. It adds a whole new dynamic to the Marcy Darcy character afterward.
Jefferson Milhouse Darcy, played by Ted McGinley, is a lot like Al. And that's what makes his character so fun.
Now, Ted McGinley is famous for another reason. In our breakout character, we talked about Jump the Shark. Ted McGinley is famous because he's a Jump the Shark icon. Every time they needed a character to fill in on the show, they brought in Ted McGinley, and he became known as Jump the Shark. When you're adding Ted McGinley, that means you're at the end of your lifeline of your show, and you're putting him in as a fill-in. And ironically, Happy Days did that. Happy Days added Ted McGinley towards the end of the show, well past its prime. But I am going to say that wasn't the case with Married with Children. He actually added a new dynamic to it that really enhanced the show much better than the Steve character did. He was in Hope and Faith. He was on 60 episodes of The Love Boat. I mean, 60 episodes as a photographer. That's what I mean. But Happy Days really was his big role. He was Roger Phillips from 1980 to 1984 in Happy Days. That's probably what, besides Married with Children, you'll remember him in. And I still love the later episodes of Happy Days. You can say whatever you want about the later seasons. I think the later seasons of Happy Days are just as much fun, and Ted McGinley was a very big part of that. Now, who is Jefferson Darcy, you may be asking? Very interesting character.
Jefferson was a pretty boy scammer, and Marcy married him in Las Vegas, if this helps set the scene. Now, unlike our good first husband, Steve, who was very serious and upstanding individual until later on he changed his ways, but that's another story for another day. He is like Al in the fact he loves to scam people. The funniest thing is that you'll find out eventually is that he used to actually have a past life as a former spy and CIA operative.
Yes, like I said, please watch Married with Children. There's so much of these characters as the show goes on that we find out about it. But that's the cast of characters we're going to have here. This is brilliant cast. All these cast members add so much to each episode. Their personalities playing off each other. Christmas with Married with Children is going to be a Christmas enjoyment like no other. With that all said, let's start our holiday celebration. Married with Children, Christmas.
All right, so fade in, and we see a bar filled with what looks to be mall Santas, and lo and behold, we see our wonderful bartender, Ray, and a disgruntled Santa who hears jingle bells and then executes the radio it's playing on.
So, we're already setting up the scene that this is going to be a disgruntled Santa-filled bar. Lo and behold, someone else walks into this bar.
And that person that walks in is, of course, the wee little folk, known as mall elves. And guess what? He's singing a song that he shouldn't be singing because he's singing Jingle Bells, and the guy next to him has a 44 Magnum ready to blow his head off, but thankfully, Ray saves the day.
We have a sign here. It says, no shirt, no shoes, no L. It's actually a very funny sight gag, and I was laughing a lot at this one.
Oh yeah, this was very good, especially since the guy gets a little perturbed about being told off. It says the next person that looks down on him, well, he's going to kick him basically in the jimmy.
Just take one wild guess who is about to walk in this door after he says that famous statement. I wonder, well, you know the answer, of course. It's Al Bundy in a Santa Claus outfit.
What does Al do? He immediately makes fun of the elf and gets a well-deserved shot to the groin. He immediately talks in falsetto.
So yeah, the elf leaves, and then Al makes a funny joke in his new high-pitched voice. Everyone already recognizes Al, so this has been going on for a long time, and he says,
Eskowitz, Gates, Bronstein.
And then we have one of Vestor's favorite moments of the scene coming next.
Well, I've been peed on, spit on, snotted on, drooled on, and thrown up on, and now it's Miller time.
So already this is really hilarious. It's only 2 minutes in, by the way, and me and Vestor are laughing out loud. We forgot how funny all the sight gags and the moments and the jokes and the scenery is. I mean, everything is just setting up Christmas so well here.
This is a Bundy Christmas, so that means everything that can go wrong is going to go wrong.
So now there's actually more to talk about the scene. You think 2 minutes in, we're already done? No, there's a lot more to go over before we even get to the next moment of this episode. So what does Al wish for? Why don't you listen for yourself and see what he's cheering to?
Give me a beer. Here's to the death of Christmas forever.
No, this is not a Scrooge episode, we assure you of this.
So it gets even better. After Al does that wonderful cheer for the spirit of Christmas, there's 3 charity Santas sitting there who don't at all agree with his attitude. What? You know how you're on the street all the time, you see those Goodwill and Salvation Army ringing the bell? That's who these 3 Santas are. They're doing it because they actually like Christmas and making money for it. Oh my god, yes, so that's like the worst thing ever. So how does Al react to their kind words? With violence, of course. Yes, he's about to beat up that nice speaking Santa, only to be held back by one of the other Santas before anything gets hurt. Yeah.
And reminds Al that, of course, he was provoked by them.
Jokes are not done yet, yes.
You remember that hot, sexy waitress? Well, she comes out and just quite frankly says, anybody wants her. And of course, the disgruntled mall Santa said, well, I was just going to go and watch Aladdin, so sure, why not? I think there's no choice between seeing Aladdin and the other. So after this happens, Al explains that basically he had a system in place in which he could con basically his family into not giving them any presents. They suddenly started to learn.
Yeah, and that's going to set up our next scene. So there you go. That was the first scene of this episode. 4 minutes into the show, and already we have some of the funniest gags and moments and one-liners and sight gags that you can see in an episode. I mean, there was so much good stuff happening here. We can't even mention all the great moments, but those are some of the highlights, I think, of this scene.
And this scene is by far not over with, because we're going to come back to it after the flashback.
Flashback, you say? That's right. This episode is pretty much a flashback. We're catching Al in the present, but he's going to go back in time to show us how we wound up with him being a disgruntled mole Santa in this episode. And now, of course, we go back to 1974. one of the first Christmases that Al remembers where he came with this plan. And again, it starts off with a great sight gag. This is actually very funny. It goes by so fast, so you have to sort of pause and notice what's really going on here.
Absolutely. So what we see is, like in a traditional American family back in the day, parents would take and mark the height of their children as they grow up and older. As you can see, we have Bud, Kelly, and then we notice the size of Peggy's hair growing, and then we also notice that Al is shrinking.
It's great stuff, as Vespor said. You have to really focus on it because it goes by so fast, but it's such a great sight gag. It really builds up the situation. It starts off with baby Bud, I guess we'll call him, because it's regular Bud sitting in a gigantic high chair wearing a onesie and sucking his thumb and talking. And he only knows 2 words, and they are...
Playboys Hooters! Playboys Hooters!
Yeah, these are his first words, folks.
So they're already building up the humor of this is what they started out like as young kids before we saw them in the first episode way back when. Kelly, of course, is still an idiot. I'm sorry. I guess even as a kid, she was her usual ditzy, absent-minded self. And she's playing with a doll who has the same hairstyle as her, all crazy and spread out.
And then enters the next joke, which is Peggy herself. Do you notice the clothes and hairstyle she's wearing?
Hey, this is supposed to be 1974. She looks like she's wearing the same exact thing she wears in every episode. Wow.
But that's the joke, Ramsey.
Oh, yeah, now, oh, that's...
Well, also, look at the rest of the house. Nothing's changed. They're coming to talk about what they want Dad to get them for Christmas, which is hilarious and expected. Bud wants his
Playboys Hooters! Playboys Hooters!
And every time he says those words, he drools a lot, and Peggy has to clean up his drool on his lips.
Kelly talking about how she wants high heels, peroxide, and a dynamite Jimmy J. Walker doll.
Like that they at least dated it with her wanting something relevant to the time period.
After that, we have Little Buck, who, by the way, would be like 20 years old at this point.
So impossible for him to actually exist, but you can't have a married with children situation without Buck.
And guess what? The only present he won was actually food.
So yeah, there you go. It's setting up everything that they're ready. They're finally going to get what they want for Christmas. This is the first time they're really ready to ask their father for a good Christmas. Every moment in this episode is going to have another running gag. Every time Al comes home, he says the phrase of,
Look out, no brakes, no brakes.
every single time, and then he crashes into the garage, or at least the bumper hits the garage where he has to stop it because of no brake. So that's gonna be another running gag, and it's actually funny because years later it's still happening.
You know what's even funnier, Ramses? It's the fact when Al walks through the door with his legit 1970s haircut.
Yes, he's the only one that looks proper for the time period, which is also funny. Now, Al looked good here. He actually had hair, nice flowing hair. He was young, he was vibrant, happy. Boy, what a marriage will do to people.
Oh, absolutely. Remember that little line on the door? Well, guess what? He goes over, measures, and he's shrunk another inch.
It's only 1974. Boy, by the time we see him again, he would be as small as the elf at this rate. Peg is slowly draining the life out of him as we go year by year here. He's home now, and he doesn't want to hear it. He's had a miserable day, and he's about to tell the same story he tells every single day about a horrible customer at the shoe store. As yes, believe it or not, Al is still working at the shoe store even back then.
Yeah, and he's promising he won't work there again. 1974.
Al's had a miserable life since the moment he got married. I mean, that's the whole theme of the show. And even these flashbacks, it's showing it's never been different. Al has been miserable his whole life since we've seen him and before. There's a silly moment that I didn't think was that funny, but we should mention it because it's a big part of the scene. And it's questionable if it's funny or overplayed. I think it was overplayed a little bit. Maybe Vespor has a different take. Kelly's gonna have an idea in her head and she wants to tell Al about it. And Al's like, okay, what is it? So Kelly's going this whole long-winded, all right, the idea is. And then he'll say, what? And then she'll say, now I forgot it. Every time he says what, she says, I forgot it. And we keep going back to the scene. And then the third time she says, don't say what, Al just stares at her. And Kelly's waiting for him to say what. He finally says what, and yes, she forgot it again.
Actually, I sort of agree with Ramses on this one. It is a time filler only because of the fact they go back to it too many times. Twice would have been fine, but they played us out to literally the end of the flashback. But now, it's time for presents for the family. And Al, of course, being a broke shoe salesman, has completely forgotten about it, as you can see here.
Oh, presents! See that expression he's giving? You can see the gears turning in his head as he's looking at them. I can give you all small, crappy presents, or the one of you that's good, I'll give a good present to. But it has to be only one of you that is good will get the good present. So that's his scheme and how he's going to get out of this every year. Because what this causes to happen is all the Bundy family members are going to fight so that they get the good present and the other family members get nothing. As hard as it is to believe, this trick worked for many, many years.
Well, or in the long run of things, it's a parody, so of course, why not?
Right, every episode is an entity upon itself. We have to remember that also of Married with Children. That's something important to mention, that it's not a connecting series. Yes, there are themes that connect, but every episode is an episode upon itself.
The only thing that is consistent after this season is the fact that Seven just disappears, and then they'll bring it up a couple of times on milk cartons that he just disappears.
So that's going to end the scene where Al got one over, and then we flash back to the bar. And I like how it set up the situation so well for what we can expect and why he's in the situation he's currently in. We're back at the bar, and now Al's telling why he's a Santa, pretty much.
Now, Al goes and says, this worked since 1974 until, strangely, 2 weeks ago. So, of course, we have yet another scene fade into 2 weeks ago.
You have to really, really suspend belief that they let this go on for so long. It's ridiculous.
Ramses, this is a parody. This is part of the fun of it. If you're watching with Married with Children, you have to suspend disbelief.
Absolutely. So now you should notice something interesting. Oh, there's that infamous Seven we kept mentioning. Yes, Seven is in the scene. There's the little kid sitting between Kelly and Peg there. And that's the little squirt there that they're going to get rid of shortly after this episode. And you'll never see him ever again. So now Peg's onto it. It took her 18 years to finally figure out that Al's been getting one over us. This year we're going to get along, and I don't care what it takes. We're going to not let Al get away with tricking us with that. He's only buying a present for one of us if we're good.
So now, after 18 years of the same thing, we come to find out that Peg has sort of realized what's gone on.
We are family is the quote she uses. Peg is going to ask everyone what they want. Seven says toys, of course. And what do you think Bud says?
Playboys, Hooters, Playboys, Hooters.
There you go. Wipe off his mouth again, Peg. That's right. And oh, Al's home. Oh, where's it? Oh, no brakes, no brakes. Yep, there he goes. 18 years later, he's still having trouble with the brakes on his car. So Al comes home, and what do the Bundys do? They hold their hands out, of course, wanting money.
Al just immediately ignores them and skips ahead, telling them exactly what he thinks.
So pretty much, he tells the same exact story he told in 1974. I'm never working in the shoe store again. A woman came in, she wanted a pair of shoes, and I told her to stick a star in her butt and go with the world's ugliest tree.
But wait, there's more. It's the fact he realizes he's been doing this for the last 18 years.
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm telling the same stories over and over again like Shelley Winters on The Tonight Show.
It's dated, but you know what? It's the expression that sells it, even if you don't know who Shelley Winters is.
Right. So the Bundys are ready for Al this time. Al gives it to him again. Oh, your Christmas list. Yes. And he gives the same line of, well, I can get each of you some crummy gifts, or one of you is nicest, the best gift of all. And they all hug and stand firm. And Al gives an expression like, uh-oh.
It goes like, fine, you can't pull this over on me. I can't buy you any gifts because I'm broke, which is the truth.
But rather than see your disappointed faces on Christmas morning, Daddy will be at the nudie bar.
But the Bundys are far from done. Peg already is one step ahead of Al for a change. And they have a way that Al will be able to make money so that they all get exactly the gifts they want. Isn't that so nice of Peg?
Don't forget, folks, this is a Christmas special. So there has to be a way to make a happy ending and also have a song.
Yes, so Peg mentions, don't worry, Al, we are taking care of the situation. We all got jobs.
Yeah, except they're not talking about for them, they're talking about for Al.
You. And then Al realizes, uh-oh.
With 12 days till Christmas, your family got for you 12 days fruit picking,
11 off-ramp selling,
10 toilets cleaning,
9 digging graves,
8 snaking sewers,
7 spearing rats,
6 training guard dogs,
5 giving blood, 4 crash test dummying,
3 jobs roach killing,
2 jobs dog catching,
and 1 job standing at the mall.
So that was another fun scene. So it takes place about 2 weeks ago, and that's setting up why Al's in the situation he was in. As we get to the midpoint, that's what's happening here now. Peg pulled a reverse on him, and now Al is more miserable than ever because Peg's onto him, and he has no choice but to go along with it. The next scene is actually another flashback. They don't really clue you in on it, but you know it's a flashback because we were just in the present with Al in the bar, but the next moment we see Al as a mall Santa being miserable. So, a flashback within the flashback. And this is probably one of the best moments of the episode because this is where we're going to see how miserable he really is as a Santa. Finally, we get the appearance of 2 other characters who haven't shown up yet, and I'm not going to reveal until they show up. Al's sitting there in his Santa outfit in the huge Santa mall chair. He's ready to go to work until he looks up. He's doing a ho, ho, ho until he does a oh, no, 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 because he sees a line a mile long going all the way throughout the mall to the end.
Yeah, these kids look like they may be from the International Children's Choir.
Well, that's because they are from the International Children's Choir. Very good bit of trivia there. Great stuff, and there's going to be a lot of side games. We're not going to mention all the side games because there's going to be Al making jokes about 2 or 3 kids as they all show up. Like, I think one has the measles, one's very fat, one is just obnoxious. It's going to be joke after joke after joke. You get it. The typical jokes you get with Santas at malls having to deal with abusive kids.
So, all this continues on until Al's favorite next-door neighbor, Marcy Darcy, jumps in his lap and starts making fun of him. Well, of course, Al is never going to take a ribbing from Marcy without giving it back just as hard.
So he resorts to his usual jokes, calling her masculine, and yes, what do you want, little boy? You know, all those type of jokes. And Marcy's fuming, sitting there, and she's still sitting on top of Al's lap, which is the funniest part. Like, wouldn't she get up? Wouldn't she say, Al, you're disgusting? No, she's sitting there all disgruntled, and then Al's like, here, why don't you have a little candy cane, little boy? And then Marcy gets one over on Al when he says, oh, is this a replica? Showing how it's bent. And they said, oh no, this is more accurate, and she snaps a tiny little piece and says, there you go, that's a proper replica. You get the phallic jokes there.
After all, this is the 90s, folks.
Right.
But in true Bundy fashion, his predictions of Marcy being confused for a little boy comes true when Jefferson comes in and start questioning boys thinking that it's actually his wife.
I did love it. He's going to every little boy. Marcy, no. Marcy. And then he thinks it's a little boy on Al's lap saying, little boy, have you seen Marcy? Oh, Marcy! And so, yeah, it plays out. It's another long-running gag, but this one I think worked better than the Kelly acting stupid one.
He goes in and talks about a wonderful pump-up bra that she's been looking for. And, of course, shenanigans explode with the back and forth between Al and Jefferson. It is great. It is perfect.
And the look Marcy gives them is hilarious. It's a dead stare. She's had enough of this. She's been humiliated by Al. She's been humiliated by her husband. She's getting criticized in a line. She's trying to have the Christmas spirit. That's it. Marcy is going to get the last laugh here. And what does Marcy do to get back at Al? Well, what everyone should do during Christmas time. Sing a Christmas song in Al's honor. And boy, does she have a song ready.
Bundy the no man, he's as bold as he can be. With hair in his nose and rot on his toes, he's as bold as he can be.
Bundy the No Man, about the miserable life and existence that Al has while he has to sit there and take it as everyone laughs and sings about his misery.
You know what? Maybe it's a good thing that the International Children's Choir was in line there, because they actually sound pretty good there at the end.
Yeah, they're actually in harmony. It was pretty well said. So that ended that scene, and that's a great scene. That's probably one of my favorite scenes of the whole episode, just because I love seeing Al as a miserable wall Santa. I don't like the Marcy parts as much, even though it was funny. I do like Al being miserable with the kids. I thought that was a lot of fun, and him insulting him. And the Marcy was needed because we didn't have the neighbors at any other part of the episode, and I'm glad they showed up there.
This scene was terrific. After all, it's not a Married with Children episode if at least Jefferson and Marcy don't show up and sort of make things worse for Al in the process.
So now we're going to head back to present again, quote unquote, where Al is now has all the Santas and Ray around him. They're listening to his miserable tale about how his family is on him, how he had to work as a small Santa.
So now, before we move on, there are a couple of great jokes here. He complains about the worst job of the 12 jobs of Christmas was being the mall Santa.
Which is hard to believe, but yes.
And then the other joke that is perfectly timed is our nice waitress come back, offers herself to Al. Al sort of just cocks an eyebrow and goes, I'd get you for my son, but he wouldn't know what to do with you.
And the waitress gives the funniest expression ever. Like, well, I tried. And she just shrugs and walks away. And then Al's like, all right, that's it. Enough talking. Give me one more for the road. I'm done. I got to get all these presents for the kids. So the next thing we see is Al's drinking the beer. And we come to another scene. Oh, Al bought all the presents. Hey, all right, we're back home here. Al's unloading all the gifts. This is great. He finally got all the gifts.
And you know what? He's got what everybody wanted. Peggy wanted a watch. Seven wanted some toys. Bud wanted Playboys and Hooters. Buck wants food to eat, but Al in his typical manner just says, you're a dog, you don't even know it's Christmas. It says basically that he peed in his shoes.
You have to understand, for people that haven't watched Married with Children, the dog will have thoughts that we, the audience, gets to hear. Some funny stuff. So all the kids come back, and they're so excited. Al did it. Finally, he got them presents. They're all excited about what he got them. Kelly's one of the first to open it. She got...
Daddy, a CD player. And my first CD.
Herman's Hermits. I'm Henry the VIII1M.
And of course, Bud gets his favorite gift.
Look, Mom! Hooters! Hooters!
Peg cleans his chin again, running gag. Peg gets a watch. We don't find out what little 7 gets, but he's holding some toy. They don't explain what it is. All worked out so well for Al, and I'm so happy for him. This is great. What a wonderful Christmas this is going to be for Al. Finally, he did it.
This is a true Christmas
Merry
episode.
Christmas, everyone. That's the end of the episode. Vespor, what's going on? Why are you playing the episode more? Oh, no. Well, Vespor ruined it. Yes, that's not the end of the episode, folks. You know, we've had so many flashbacks in this episode. Well, it wouldn't be right unless we had a dream moment. So, yes, that was all a dream.
If you've seen Married with Children, you knew this couldn't be the ending. Al can't have an ending like that.
No, even when I saw original, I said there's no way Al got this to it. And unfortunately, that ends the scene. Very funny, but it's going to set up one of the best endings to Married with Children episode ever.
Now we come back to present and find out, guess what? Al was dreaming, and you know what?
It was all worth it. It was all worth it.
Empty beer steins in front of him, and he's all like confused. Where am I? So he wants to go get the gifts, and he wants to pay off his tab. The bar's empty, by the way, so a lot of time has passed here.
After he wakes up, he comes to find out that he doesn't owe anything because he generously paid for the entire bar. Because, as Ray points out here, he was unconscious.
And he's sure that's what he would have wanted to do. It's not the Christmas he envisioned, but it's going to be a nice Christmas for his family because he's going to have a little talk with Ray.
And now, Ray, can we talk?
The key joke of the whole entire episode, how is Al going to have a Christmas for his family?
Oh, it's just not perfect because, after all, nothing can ever go as Al plans. Ever.
Now, this is the final scene, and we're going to focus on it a little bit, and then we'll get to our final review here. So, Al, again, crashes into the garage. No brakes. And everyone's more worried about the presents than poor Al. And they're excited, because finally, he's coming home with presents. But how? Al lost all his money. What's going to happen? Well, don't worry. Al has a nice Santa sack. He's all ho-ho-ho and happy. Boy, where did he get all these presents from? But he has them, and he's ready to give them out to the family.
That's right. And the first one to receive their gift is Bud, who gets a nice raised bar dartboard.
And he's like, but Dad, it says Ray, get out of here. You bother me, kids.
Next up is Seven, who gets his first beer steins.
Yep, and Seven has his second line of the episode where he says,
Wow, much cooler than a bike.
trying to exit stage right when he should be going to the couch. I can't see why they got rid of this actor, but yes.
And then we have Kelly, who gets her own TV. And she's like, wow, it comes with its own wall. And best of all, it's a raise.
So she's excited.
And before we get to our next present, we have to have a moment for Al to once again forget about getting anything for Buck because he's a stupid animal that doesn't know it's Christmas. Well, guess what, Al? You don't know about that dead bird you left in your jacket.
The audience is going hysterical. They love this. This is, again, live studio audience. They are hooting and hollering and cheering on this whole thing. They are so happy for Al, what he's accomplished here. Such a Married with Children Christmas here of what we are witnessing before our eyes. Finally, we have the wife. What did Al get his dear beloved wife?
Well, he did try to forget her, but he couldn't. So he pulls out this nice gold chain that has Ray on it. You know
Ray?
that? Yeah, we've seen this somewhere before.
Where did he get that? I don't know. We've only seen it for the whole entire episode.
After all, she's like,
Honey, it says Ray.
Well, sure, honey. That's because you're my little ray of sunshine.
Al, being the romantic he is, finishes off properly by saying,
Oh, Al.
Oh, Ray.
Now that's a Married with Children ending, all right, folks? You thought he was going to have the happy Christmas? No, nothing goes as you think it's going to go for the Bundys. I always remember the ending of this episode so well, especially with the Ray and You're My Ray and Oh Ray, and I thought it was so funny how they ended everything here.
this is the perfect ending for a Married with Children episode, and also the innuendo of what happened to Ray and what he did to that bar. The best part is, Ray deserved it.
That was Married with Children Christmas. Star of our show, the one we should all be thankful to for another fun year with Vesper's Retro Reviews. Vesper, what do you think of Married with Children, episode 12 of season 7, known as Christmas?
This is a holiday special, and even though it was a parody, it still kept to the feeling of Christmas with family at the end, although the journey to that happy ending is totally different with Married with Children. That being said, I'd give this a wonderful 3.5 stars. This is very enjoyable, very well written, tremendous joke telling, not the best writing, but you know what? It's still enjoyable, and I would highly recommend that you watch this, if not for Christmas, definitely during the holiday season. And some of my favorite parts of this episode, the fact that they used a lot of the old jokes, like repeating of Christmas from 1974 and back into 1992, the car crashing, the singing for the 12 Jobs of Christmas. There's all kinds of fun jokes. The best joke is, of course, at the end, where Al ones up the guy that ruined his Christmas for his family. And the reason I couldn't give it higher than 3.5 stars is because of the amount of flashbacks and scene transitions. To me, it was starting to get confusing, but thankfully I've only seen this episode 30 times, so I knew exactly what was going on.
You know, I love this episode. This is probably one of my favorite Married with Children episodes. You might be saying, wow, a Christmas episode your favorite. I mean, I love the series. I've seen all the seasons. And yes, there are much better episodes than this, but this is so memorable because I love the take on Christmas that they had here. This is such a Bundy Christmas, and it's done in an interesting style. It's done in a lot of flashbacks and a lot of dreams, all happening in different periods, all building up to this one gag that they're going to end it with. And it ties everything together so well. And I like this even more than Vespor. I'm going to give this 4 stars. It really is one of my favorite Married with Children episodes. Definitely not a 5-star because I did mention there was a lot of little things that didn't make sense. Like, we had to really believe for 18 years he was getting away with this trick. We had to really believe that Al would go along with it. No. I thought the Marcy situation was forced. I'm glad they had it and it was funny, but it's a weird forced scene. Why is Marcy sitting on his lap? And I mean, the whole thing's a little silly. That's why it's not 5. There's a lot of silly things that they had to put in there so that all the characters show up. And they had a lot of songs. You know, it starts off with a song on the radio. It starts off with the elf singing that same song, only for that to stop. And then we go to the 12 Jobs of Christmas. So they do that. And then we have Bundy the No Man. So they had a lot of Christmas music in this episode in a weird way. So yeah, I love this episode. I thought it was great. If you want to watch a fun Christmas episode, you can't go wrong with Married with Children's Christmas. And we'll leave it at that. Thank you for joining us for our first episode that we'll be reviewing in this 2022 holiday special edition that we do every holiday time on Vesper's Retro Reviews. That's right, we're going to have another one to follow very shortly. So if you like this one, and we hope you did, please like, comment, subscribe. And
ring that bell
if you did, but stay tuned because we're going to have another one very shortly. It's not going to be Married with Children, but it will be another very famous family from Sitcom Piz. And we'll see you all next time on Vesper's Retro Reviews. Happy holidays, everybody. Don't forget to check for our next episode soon. Stay tuned for more holiday fun. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.